they're doing the GA roundup, so they may choose all the music they have. There's always so much wonderful music that you just all fit in. I was hoping they'd be here, but make sure to know when they're here. But that's, yeah, that's, are you that one too?
All right. All right. Good morning. This may be the fewest people I've ever seen here on a Sunday morning. Is everyone on vacation today or at the beach? I guess so, but we also know that in the next 10 minutes, all kinds of people are going to walk in the door. So, good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. I'm Amanda Pyburn, a member of this fellowship and your service leader this morning. We gather on the unceded lands of the Muskogee Nation of Florida. We are grateful for the land and those who tended it before us. If you're visiting today, you'll find more about us on the back of your order of service and a lot of information on our website, uufec.com. Unitarian Universalism is a religion marked by freedom, reason, and acceptance. We were all strangers once, but have found a home here where our views are respected, our questions are thoughtfully considered, and our presence is always welcome. Announcements are listed in your order of service, as well as descriptions of upcoming services. So please take a look. After the service, we have a time for refreshments and conversation, followed by second hour small discussion groups, which are also listed in your order of service. Today's choices are Speaker's Circle, where we gather at the front to discuss today's sermon or anything else that you want to talk about. Pagan Pathways, led by Trudy Griffin, will be in the library through the double doors to the right. And choir practice is open to anyone in the Harmony Room. So everyone is welcome to join. And now the prelude prepares us for the service. If Alex will come up to light the chalice. Words are by Michelle LeGrave. We come to religious community from many paths and with diverse needs. If you have come here seeking comfort, may your pain be soothed. If you have come here looking for answers, may you find new questions. If you have come here seeking purpose, may your call be awakened. If you have come here hoping to build a new way, may the path before you open. Please stand in body or in spirit for our hymn, What Wondrous Love, which is in the gray hymnal, number 18, and the words will also be on the screen. We have a responsive reading. The words are, to your part, are in your order of service, or they will also be on the screen. I will begin, and then if you will respond. It's called Together in a Sacred Space by Lorelei Greenwood Jones. In this sacred space, we need not be alone. We seek a listening ear, a warm heart, open arms. Your turn. In this sacred space, we join together against the waves of negativity and oppression in our world. We are a community of individual beings, living our own lives, yet coming together now and then in celebration of spirit and one another. Our differences? Here, joys are shared and sorrows comforted. We are seen and heard and believed. My compassion overflows. Our hearts reach for others. We are a gathering of like-hearted people, and here are our hearts filled. We hear the wisdom and counsel of our ministers and that of one another. In this sacred space, may we find what our spirits desire and what our spirits need. May we be grounded in love and sharing. In this sacred place, may we find acceptance and consideration. May our actions and words echo it is the time for all ages. If any kids want to come up to the front, you don't have to, but you're certainly welcome to. Come on up for a story. Big and small. This story doesn't have any pictures. All the pictures you have to make in your mind. It's called A Tale of Three Villages. Move it there. So there were once three friends who lived in a town that was destroyed by floods. Together they set out for higher ground to find a new home. As they journeyed, they thought back of the people they had known and the places they had loved, all the things they had done, and they wanted to find a similar place for their new home. As they crossed over mountains, they saw a sheltered, wide, fertile valley with three small villages scattered throughout. One of them said, "This looks a lot like home, but I'm a little nervous about meeting new people." The second one said, "We three have become good friends. We know and trust each other, and we share the work fairly. Will that work in a new place?" The third said, "Let's ask good questions at each village to find out which might be the best for us." So over their campfire that night, they came up with two questions to ask. The first one was, how does the village make decisions? And the second, what happens when you don't agree? So they enter the first village. And the villagers told them, "We have a powerful ruler who decides what is best for our village. The ruler's family have been in charge for generations. If we have a disagreement, the ruler decides for us." The travelers looked at each other with tight lips, said thank you, and moved along. It's not where they wanted to live. So they enter the second village, and they ask their first question, "How does your village make decisions?" The villagers responded, "We vote for a few people to represent us all on a council. We vote for people who promise to make decisions that are best for us." Then the travelers asked, "What happens if you don't agree with their decisions?" "Well, sometimes we don't all like what they decide, but we have to do it anyway." The travelers looked at each other, a little disappointed still, said thank you and goodbye to those villagers as well. As they trudged onto the third village, they talked amongst themselves. One said, "That sounded pretty good, but was it really the best possible?" Another said, "Oh, not really. Some people have a bigger say than others." And the third said, "After people vote for those council members, they can still do whatever they want. That could be a problem." In the third village, they soon found some villagers to ask about their decision making. One villager smiled and said, "Come with us, we will show you." They formed a large circle and invited the travelers to join them. One villager wearing a special necklace said, "We welcome you into our circle. If you would like to stay, you must accept our agreements. Speak the truth, keep your promises, honor and care for this circle as part of earth and sky." The travelers looked at each other with shiny eyes and agreed in unison. Another villager explained, "This is how we make important decisions, by listening to each other in turn, under these agreements, until a decision is made. This is also how we disagree, by listening to each person in turn. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree, but we disagree in respect and peace." The travelers smiled widely. They had found their new home. So I want you to think about those three ways. Probably we can all agree we don't want to be in the first village where the people don't have any say at all. Which one is most like our country or most big countries? The second one, right. So as wonderful as the third sounds, why would it not work for a large country? Yeah.
It's very hard to get millions of people in one circle and listen to everyone's truths.
It is. So, sometimes when we see what seems perfect, it's like, well, that works for some things. It might work in our congregation. It would work in a club or a small group. It would be fabulous. In a bigger group, we might have to take the best of several different plans. We might have to vote for people to represent us, but don't we still wish they would follow those 3 agreements? Yeah, we still want them to speak the truth, keep their promises, and of course sometimes conditions change and you may have to change what you planned, but at least try to keep your promises and honor and care for all the people in the circle, in the earth and sky. So that is what we would hope for. What do you want to add?
I was gonna say the third one sounds a lot like communism. Communism can't work on the large level because it's hard to make everyone equal when you have no leader. That's the problem with communism, that didn't work on the scale of millions. That's why every communist country you see generally collapses or can't run properly.
Sounds like a great thing to talk about in your class in a few minutes. There you go. So, but you're right, large groups and small groups have to work a little differently, but we still need to let as many people as possible have a say, and we need to listen respectfully and peacefully, and that can be hard, but it's what we try. Thanks for listening. The sharing of joys, milestones, and concerns is a tradition in our fellowship. You're welcome to come up, drop a pebble into the bowl of water silently, or while speaking a few words into the microphone. This practice shares our joys and helps us support each other in sorrows. Remember to tell about others only with their permission. A reading by Adrienne Marie Brown. Do you already know that your existence, who and how you are, is in and of itself a contribution to the people and place around you, not after or because you do some particular thing, but simply the miracle of your life, and that the people around you and the places have contributions as well. Do you understand that your quality of life and your survival are tied to how authentic and generous the connections are between you and the people and place you live in and with? Are you actively practicing generosity and vulnerability in order to make those connections between you and others clear, open, available, and durable? Generosity here means giving of what you have without strings or expectations attached. Vulnerability means showing your needs. We'll have a moment for silent meditation and prayer. After our song of dedication, the greeters will take up the offering. Generosity is a spiritual practice. Our fellowship is supported by our pledges and donations. If you're paying your pledge with a check, make a note of that on the memo line. We also have a tradition we call Share the Plate, where we equally split all cash donations and unmarked checks as with a local charity. For the month of July, our Share the Plate partner is Healing Paws for Warriors. The battle doesn't always end when our warriors come home. Healing Paws is dedicated to reducing veteran suicides by training rescue or shelter dogs to become ADA certified service dogs, thus saving lives from both ends of the leash. Please be generous. Our speaker this morning is Ember Kelley from the Unitarian Universalist Association Youth and Emerging Adult Ministry Staff. His title is Everyone is Needed.
My name is Ember Kelley, and I use any pronouns. I am a member of the Youth and Emerging Adult Ministry Staff Team, part of the Lifespan Faith Engagement Office at the Unitarian Universalist Association. I practice visual descriptions as an act of inclusive welcoming. I'm a white, gender-expansive person. I have shoulder-length hair that appears blonde on screen, but is graying brown hair. I wear glasses, and I'm wearing a gray button-up shirt. Behind me are windows and bookshelves. I'm so honored to be sharing with you today. In elementary school, I made a statement that would end up shaping the course of my entire life. When asked about what I wanted to be when I grew up, I dared to name pastor as a potential option. Other options were on my list, such as the glamorous work of paleontologist and painter. Apparently, I was destined for work that began with a P in the name. I seem to have failed in that regard. But everyone around me picked up on this idea that I would someday be a pastor. I was a young evangelical Christian, so once those words had left my mouth, ministers and other adults became a constant source of praise and encouragement toward considering a call on my life from God. I had not even turned 10, but suddenly was being told that destiny had put me on a path towards a certain job. And who was I to consider fighting destiny? I became trapped in a narrative placed on my life. The skills that I was showing at a young age and my interest in religion meant that I absolutely must head down a certain path. To be invested in my religious community on a deep level, that meant a singular path to pursue ministry. The narrative was that I was either a passive consumer of religion or on the track to become an ordained minister who was responsible for all the facets of keeping the community running. There was no room for variation for other ideas of what type of work, even other religious-based work, that my skills could lead to, because the vision of a senior minister was the highest calling. This was the goal for anyone with a sense of a call to do religious work. This was the narrative that was provided to me and that trapped me. And I internalized this narrative as well. And even when I began confronting my gender nonconformity in my 20s, the narrative was so powerful that I became more convinced that I must become a minister so that I could prove to those who had issues with my identity, that I could prove to them that my ordination would be proof that trans people were able to belong in religious spaces. I couldn't even think to question the narrative that I had been fed since I was a child. What other goal could there be than ordination? If I was truly committed to the exploration of spirituality in my life, wasn't this the path that I had to go down to prove that I was serious about it? To prove that I was able to meet all of the expectations of a religious leader, to offer all of my life to this work? It took a lot of painful religious experiences, followed by intentionally stepping back from religious spaces, for me to even consider that the same abilities and desires could be expressed in other ways, or that religious communities could have a different form from the hierarchy I had grown up with. I headed to non-Christian dominant cultures and purely educational work, where I began to realize there were so many more ways to find meaning in my life, and where I began to do the work of building a community of meaningful friendships. And then it was finally in finding religious education work in the Unitarian Universalist Association that I was able to step back and say, wait, there are other narratives for what leadership is and what our religious communities can look like. We have so often ended up stuck in our own narratives around what our communities must be or must become, especially when it comes to leadership. We've brought along many of our cultural assumptions around leadership, what it means to be a leader, what it requires, and who can be leaders. These narratives lead us to believe that we must cultivate leaders from an early age, or identify people with special skills, who we then put our hope into the belief that they will become future Unitarian Universalist ministers. These same narratives cause us to view potential new members as future volunteers. We place many expectations about what roles people will be able to fill in our communities. And many of these narratives from our expectations of leadership lead to unhealthy dynamics in our communities. The upheaval of many systems in recent years brings the possibility for beginning to change these narratives. We can honor what has come before, but I believe we can shift to new visions in our congregations about what leadership looks like and what our congregations can be. What story can we tell instead? I believe that shared ministry and visions of collaborative community building provide us with the key. We have seen new ideas around leadership emerge in Unitarian Universalism, especially around the concept of shared ministry. Shared ministry means many things, from recognizing the role of religious education and religious educators in communities, to thinking about how staff teams work together in dynamic and flexible ways, and then also to recognizing our interconnected congregational life. Dr. Janice Marie Johnson offers us this definition. Shared ministry means sharing in the responsibilities of the community. We are all doing ministry together. When our congregations come together in service, when we gather in education, when we gather for community building events, when we do justice work, when we care for each other, all of us are doing this ministry together. Healthy communities need everyone, not just superstar leaders. We build community together. In the book Emergent Strategy, author Adrienne Maree Brown writes that no one is special and everyone is needed. I find this quote both beautiful and immensely challenging. What could it look like for us to internalize this feeling in our congregations? Can we live out the reality that everyone is needed? How can we focus on building up our entire communities instead of solitary leaders? Can we change the narrative around leadership and work to build communities of sustainable connections, where people can develop a variety of capabilities, explore their sense of self and their sense of belonging, and try on roles without necessarily making a lifetime commitment, either a commitment to our faith movement or who they want to be within it? And I think this carries over to our work across generational differences as well. In collaborative communal leadership, we can build a sense of partnership between our youngest members and our oldest members. We can build communal partnership based on the understanding that the work of community building and the experience of belonging are what are most needed, that we need to provide space where all can be nourished and grow. Instead of pressuring individuals to carry the weight of leadership alone, can we foster communities where we feel a deep sense of belonging, which then calls forth a desire to build community together? Involvement in community building is the leadership we need. Let us grow alongside each other because our shared community means something deeply to each of us. I think of the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a Lutheran theologian who taught about community amidst Nazism in Germany. He wrote that the person who loves their dream of community will destroy community, but the person who loves those around them will create community. We can come to our communities with all of our training, all of our expectation, all of our preconceived notions for what we should be doing or how we should be doing it, those dreams of community. But as Bonhoeffer is sharing and observing, those dreams of community are not a replacement for the work of love, the work of connecting with other people in community? Are we coming to communities with narratives of what they should be and what they owe us? Can we shift to instead seeing our communities as a space to encounter differences in beautiful ways? Community is both challenging and beautiful, because a community will always be a group of people with different ideas, different ways of doing things, different approaches, and different interests. Our UU value of pluralism, found in Article 2, tells us that we celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. If no one is special and everyone is needed, then we must embrace this pluralism and all that it offers us. We can see our differences and yet commit more to love those around us and create community. This is the beauty of pluralism grounded in love. Building community isn't the work of a leader who will save us all. Building community isn't asking volunteers to give all of their energy until they burn out. Building community isn't making your congregation fit into the mold of another congregation that seems to be successful. Building community is showing up for one another in our differences, finding beauty and possibility together, and navigating together in collaborative community and shared ministry to create a space where people feel a sense of belonging. While it took a long journey, I'm glad that I was shaken away from this idea that I was either a passive consumer of religion or had to fit a certain vision of leadership. I realized that a sense of belonging, a sense of buy-in, is available to all of us. We can approach our Unitarian Universalist communities, and we can grow and work together. We can become hubs of belonging, not predicated on what skills are offered, not predicated on who we are, but solely on a desire to be a part of a community together. And we must do this because everyone is needed.
Please stand as you're able for the hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. It's in the teal hymnal, the little one, number 1007. speaking of shared ministry and leadership, this coming week is when our new minister officially begins on the payroll. As you know, she's part-time and lives in Virginia, so we're not going to see her right away, but it'll be just a few weeks before her first visit down. And in the meantime, she'll be calling committee chairs, going to virtual meetings, and getting to know us better. But again, she's not the leader who's coming down to save us all, because we do our best to practice shared ministry as a small congregation where many of you are the speaker, many of you are up here and doing every job there is to make our service. Shared ministry will always be very important to us, and it's how we get to know each other and build that community we need. Our closing words are by Carrie Holly Hurt. Love holds you. Love bears witness to all your inherent dignity and worthiness. It witnesses how you try, succeed, and fail, and it does not flinch. Love will not let go. Love holds all of you. Please stay seated for the postlude. Thank you for coming. Please join for coffee and conversation and second hour if you're able to stay.